Welcome to Behind the Byline, a podcast by PR Newswire where we chat with journalists and editors across APAC on what goes behind their bylines. We'll find out more about a day in the work life of journalists, the trends and developments they are looking out for, and how PR professionals can work better with them. My name is Kenneth from PR Newswire, and today my guest is Reta Lee, editor in chief of Yahoo Live Southeast Asia. Based in Singapore, Rita has more than 15 years of experience in the publishing and online media industry. She has written for many Malaysian, Singaporean, and international publications over the years. Today, she helms the lifestyle and entertainment sections at Yahoo across Southeast Asia, covering beats such as shopping, travel, food to health and wellness. More recently, Rita is also the editor and creative force behind the book The Stories Women Journalists Tell, a compilation of essays by 22 women journalists across Southeast Asia on their experiences reporting on the ground in areas such as politics and lifestyle. Welcome, Rita, to the podcast. So, Rita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
So,
Canon.
Okay, so something that's really hot off the press recently is your new book, The Stories Women Journalists Tell. So maybe you could start off with sharing with us how did this spark for this book started?
It was when we came out about of the circuit breaker in Singapore. And at that time, it was a very much a down and low period for most of us, right? And the only safe place I could go was Kinokuniya, where I could like pick my next great read, right? So as I was browsing through the shelves and I noticed, a book called um, Arab reporting by women journalists, and it was on wars and such. And as I held that book, I felt that we are in a very blissful and lucky state that we do
Mm,
not face such
mm,
incidents like war and such.
mm.
But another spark as well came to my mind saying that, you know what, I can also do this. I can
Okay.
also compile stories, from women journalists in South Asia. And there's so many stories that we can tell from this region.
Mm,
So the one thing I decided to do is when I reached home, I just cold emailed Penguin. I did not know the publisher, I did not know anyone. I pitched like a three-liner saying this was my idea. And 3 days later,
mm-hmm.
my publisher Nora replied and she said, okay, you know what, we like the idea. Could you put your ideas cohesively into a format, into a proposal so we
Yeah.
can review? And then after that, they offered me the contract. And at that time, I was already freaking out because I had nobody on board with this project yet. It was just a little bean of an idea in my head, and now I needed to grow it.
I see.
So of course, I reached out to my social media, to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram, and asked friends of friends who would be interested to partake in this one-off project. And I had so many people tagging their friends or friends like, oh, hey, this might be up your alley and things like that. So from there, I had actually a list of 50 names and then it narrowed down to 30. And, as with any project, there are timelines to meet. And then, people just can't meet the deadlines or they just fall out of the project due to work commitments. And that's how there's 22 of us for this project.
Nice, I see. And the book really covers diverse experiences of women reporting on the ground from politics, lifestyle, travel, to culture. So, for yourself, why do you think it is so important to put out these stories from the perspective of women journalists, and why now?
Yeah. I feel like it's such an important time to tell stories from Asia, right? I mean, as you may have seen, we are getting more diverse stories, such as like your Crazy Rich Asians. There's even Turning Red by Pixar recently as well, and it's so important because I feel as a society itself, regardless whether in Malaysia or Philippines or Singapore, it's very much a patriarchal society,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and there's this lack of women representation in the newsroom. you know while there are more and more women in the leadership roles, I feel that there is still not enough support for women journalists in the newsroom, whether you're starting off as a rookie, or you're trying to make your way up and things like that. So as I gather, like some of my discussions with my fellow friends and journalists, I realized there's a recurring theme in that. There's gender biasness, there's underrepresentation. So the skeleton of the book, I've always wanted it, and I envision it to have these pillars, like you say, covered news, politics, human interest, travel, lifestyle, because there are just so many stories covering, within these topics by journalists in different fields of their own, in their own niche, topics or assignments that they cover. So I was very, very lucky to, have a handful of women who believe in this project. And I can honestly tell you that I do not know 50% of them.
Wow. So it's really
Yeah.
off the ground, really
It
on
was
the.
really off the ground. Like they just entrusted me to, get this book off the ground, getting their stories together, and then writing the essays, meeting the deadlines. And if you pick up the book, you will read very, very interesting experiences that they've covered behind their assignments. And you can see again, the
Mm,
kind of tone or craft that their fellow colleagues had unleashed on them, during
okay.
that time of reporting, whether it's in the 90s or even to now,
Yeah.
it still exists. Gender biasness still exists, and
Mm,
it's crazy, So hopefully with this book, I also wanted to champion, women supporting women, and
okay.
also celebrating women's strength, their camaraderie, their kindness, as well as showing the different facets that we have. We're not just a journalist, we're someone's daughter, we're a
Mm.
mother, we're someone's partner, and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that you are kind of putting together stories behind people who are reporting the stories. Because oftentimes people usually just pay attention to the news, but there's always usually they've forgotten that there's a human element behind it. Somebody also has her experience reporting the news also. Yeah. So wanted to ask, when you were working on this project as a creative force behind this book, was there something that surprised you in the journey of getting fellow journalists to share the stories behind reporting on the ground? Was there anything that surprised you throughout this journey?
Yeah, there are two surprise elements. Number
Okay.
one, it actually forced me to be organized because as journalists, we're just very disorganized people. It really forced me to, follow my timeline, put everything in an Excel sheet, do lots of following up. So it actually, puts me in the backseat of being this, organizer, this book manager of some sort to get it off the ground. That's one. And secondly, I felt like the stories were just so raw and honest. So when I gave this assignment somewhat to my fellow authors, the idea was that they were to write that piece of essay based on their emotions and experiences while covering a certain pivotal,
Mm,
assignment at that time. And you could see how they had also struggled, you know, with with one of the journalists, an Indonesian journalist, Amanda, she had struggled between, she's a mom and at the same time she wants to go on this assignment to a very remote village in Indonesia, but it's just so dangerous as well for her at the same time. And she had to make the choice of staying back because she needs to protect herself and her family. So there are choices that we have to make as a journalist as well. And there are all these factors around you that come into play, and that makes us women journalists so, I would say, interesting because we have to balance so many facets. At the
right.
same time, trust our instincts and intuition when we're
Mm,
making that decision.
yeah, definitely. And when it comes to these stories that women journalists tell, so share with us what is your most memorable assignment? Because you have had more than 15 years of experience in publishing and in the online media industry, veteran lifestyle editor. So to you, what has been your most memorable assignment and how that has left an impact on you yourself?
Yes. To be honest, the essay that I wrote in my book, Getting Tear Gas, was no fun. I guess that would be my most interesting assignment that I gave myself, because at that
Okay.
time, I was the only women journalist on the team to cover the Bersay protest. And we knew there was going to be tear gas. We knew there's going to be all this, SWAT team going down and, big protests, thousands of people. And at that time, we were just such a small news team. So I had another editor just, you know, um, grounded to do the reporting, whereas I'm going on ground to accompany my, ex boyfriend who was the videographer at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also doing live blogging, and we were not prepared.
Mm.
I had no training whatsoever in terms of going down to the street,
Wow. Okay.
no street knowledge of how to protect myself from tear gas and all the
Mm.
chemicals and things like that. But as
Wow.
a reporter on the ground, you just need to do what it takes to deliver the news, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just crazy. So when you ask me right now, like about writing that essay and reviving that memory,
Yeah.
it just feels so surreal that it actually happened 10 years ago, but the memory is still etched.
Mm.
The smell of the tear gas, you just can't forget about it. It's still etched. The feeling of seeing police brutality on the streets of Malaysia, it's all happening in your eyes. And as a journalist, yes, you report all of that, truthfully, factually, with all your sources and all your images and video formats and things like that.
Mm.
But as a citizen, you also take a little stand,
Yeah.
as maybe a little bit of an activist. Like
Mm.
you're seeing all this brutality happening, and you just want to right the wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say that would be my most memorable assignment. And it actually
Yeah.
taught me a lot about myself. Like, okay, at times like this, I could be brave, but I don't know whether I can do it again if I have a family, perhaps, a young child or things like that. I would probably put myself and my family first before endangering myself, for example.
Wow. Wow. It really sounds like a thrilling adventure. Was that the most bravest thing you, I mean, kind of did as a journalist of all your years?
Yeah, I would say because after that, I chose to go more into the lifestyle and entertainment reporting, because that was I would say, my training ground, because I started off in magazines and things like that. The reason why I had gone into news
Yeah.
as well is because, like I mentioned, we were a small team and we were helping each other, and whatever resources that we need, we put them together.
I see.
So yeah, I think that's the life that I had left a long time ago,
All
covering
right. Okay.
news on the ground.
Nice. All right. And making a nice segue to the lifestyle segment. So now you are the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Lifestyle in Southeast Asia, based in Singapore. So share with us how a regular work day is like for you as editor-in-chief.
Yeah, I mean, at Yahoo, we are not just a, original content producer. We are also an aggregator. We work with different content providers to bring forth the stories that our readers want to read and need to know. So in that sense, I would consider us more as a media company, right? And we are
Okay.
doing lots of different things. And for lifestyle, my day to day is pretty routine in terms of, like, I wake up, I make sure that there are the right stories on the homepage. I work with my homepage manager in that sense. And then we pass on the stories to our social media agency to make sure that they're being, social and things like that. And then throughout the day, of course, we work with our, group of freelancers who are in different fields. So, for example, we have someone writing food reviews for us. We have someone writing a dating column for us from her purview of a millennial dating today. We have someone who's writing mental health stories. And then, that's also your beauty and fashion stories.
Okay, so you're kind of juggling a lot of beats. So farming out the work to freelancers, managing
Yeah.
content. I see, I see. And because
Yeah.
yeah, and lifestyle is, such a pertinent part of our lives, and the pandemic has definitely dominated the news cycle over the past 2 years. So, share with us any recent editorial initiatives that you have introduced that kind of reflect the change in lifestyle recently.
Mm. That's a very good question because when we entered the pandemic, I think most of us were forced to, take refuge in our own home, and immediately we started creating this new channel called Good Vibes Only because we want people to eat well, exercise well. At the time we weren't allowed to go to gym, we weren't allowed to go out, right? And as a team, we even tried different things. Like even myself, I tried different YouTube workouts, and then I started rating them to give our readers a sense. Okay,
Okay.
which are the some workouts that are easy to do and things like that. And then we introduce more articles on food delivery. How you can support your local hawkers and things like that, and people do appreciate that. So from that whole carving of the mental wellness channel, we also pivoted into fitness because now 2022 people want to live healthy and eat healthy, and that's what we are coming into. And then we branched out a little bit into sexual wellness as well because there's so much that we can tell in sexual education, whether it's in children, whether it's in young parents like us to instill knowledge in our children and things like that. So these are some of the topics that we have pivoted so far in 2022. Now, for lifestyle, during the pandemic as well, I was entrusted with a new project, and it was just a very, I would say, a new topic to try out, but I hadn't had any KPIs on it. So it was actually more on affiliate content or e-commerce.
Hmm.
So we work with some of our merchants through a platform like Amazon or even Skimlinks in UK, where we curate some of the interesting or best products that our readers can find or benefit from. So, for example, with our partner with iHerb, we can recommend like some of the essential oils that you can use to
Hmm.
enable you to sleep well.
Hmm.
Now, with fashion and beauty products, we are already, forecasting trends like spring summer 2022, what is happening in Prada, what's
Yeah.
happening in Louis Vuitton, Chanel, all that. And we are closing the loop by encouraging our readers to shop the look. And
Okay.
that's how we curate, some of the looks or the products that we can um, forecast from some of our partners.
Oh,
So
so
shopping is actually a very, very big element of
hmm.
what Yahoo is yeah, bringing forth right now.
I see. So the whole idea is that people can read content on Yahoo and as well shop directly based on the content
Exactly.
that they see. Yeah, and
Correct.
and because the website is still seen as a lifestyle editorial website. So how do you find that balance of putting out editorial content and as well as also putting out content that meets your shopping KPI? Is there kind of a balance that you seek, or in the way that you approach the planning of
Yeah,
your stories? How does it affect them?
interestingly, I would say that lifestyle and shopping go hand in hand, very much strongly so. There are certain editorial stories that we choose not to affiliate because, we respect the flow of the piece. Like, for example, it may be an interview with a mental disorder, a person who has a mental disorder and things like that, and how they overcome. Of course, it doesn't make sense for us to affiliate it. You know, that in a way shows that we are trying to preserve our editorial discretion and judgment. Yeah, that's one. And then the other arm is when we choose to, write more of the fun pieces, curating all the shopping trends, whether it's like the latest handbags you need to have, or like our partners having 50% campaign off on a certain brand. Then it's very clear cut because the shopping stories also carry our shopping disclaimer. Like you may, see that we are curating some products and we may get a cut. So that's how we differentiate our pieces of content.
I see, I see. And so how has the response been to the shopping content?
Wow, it's been a very, very interesting ride for me. I mean,
Mm,
when I first started this project in 2020,
yeah.
it was just, myself and a freelancer figuring out, okay, what do people want to buy? But when you put yourself in their shoes, like I am a shopper, so I'm a shopaholic. I love bargains and things like that. So taking into account all of that and then creating the content, and we had a whole year of like results that we could see, trends as well of what shoppers are buying. And from that learning from those statistics, we were able to replicate a certain formula moving forward in 2021 and even to this year. So I can say even in 2021, we made three times the revenue of 2020, which tells us a lot that readers, love bargains. Readers love promo deals that we are able to kind of wrangle from our merchants just
Okay.
specifically for Yahoo readers.
Mm,
And I feel that, just only based from seeing what they're shopping and things like that from the articles, that they appreciate what my shopping editors have curated and have advised. So yeah, it's gonna be a long stay for us here at
okay.
Yahoo and with the lifestyle pillar. And yeah, so stay tuned. Hopefully we get more promo deals for Yahoo readers.
Nice. Look like I must start shopping there more often to get better deals. Yeah, from Yahoo. All right. And because and for yourself, what are some of the lifestyle trends or topics that you are on the lookout for that's on your radar in 2022? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good forecast question. I mean, just speaking with my team a few days ago, there are so many retail lanes that have been opening up in Singapore. So
Mm,
travel is definitely something that we have been keeping on the lookout for. I mean, we've been creating a lot of local articles just highlighting staycations, activities we can do. Also, particularly because STB, Singapore Tourism Board, has been very much, pushing a lot of the local activities that we can do since we could not travel and travel borders were shut, right?
yes.
So that's why we also were aligning ourselves with, some of our big partners in that sense. And we do notice that a lot of our readers are looking for unique experiences in Singapore to do, whether it's a candle making workshop or whether it's a good bargain staycation that they can get, to celebrate a certain anniversary with a loved one and with the family and so forth. So as a whole, I feel that with travel, because the VTLs are opening, we are starting to maybe expand our horizon a little bit and possibly, create content around Southeast Asia first. I think there's just so many beauties, so many
Mm.
stays that we can highlight within South Asia, and then possibly from that we'll go, beyond Japan and Korea and France and so forth.
Okay, so what kind of travel, I mean, when it comes to traveling overseas, what kind of content are you looking to put up? Is it more like travelogues, tips, inspirations?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest travel story we did was when Stephanie, one of our editor, did a story about how to notarize your vaccination cert in order for you to travel and things like that. It's a very tipsy article, and a lot of readers do appreciate that. So for us right now, there are two prongs, right? There is one where you can interview new hoteliers that are coming up, and I just even recently interviewed, the owners of a new hotel that's coming out in Kuala Lumpur called Al's Hotel, And then on the other hand, we can also create shopping content where we pick the best stays for different types of travelers, whether you are the bargain hunters, whether you are the lux nomads and things like that. So hopefully these are the two prongs that we're going forward with travel, particularly in 2022.
The other part of your job is also interviewing personalities. You've interviewed lots of celebrities and personalities over the years. I was just wondering, what was the most memorable person or the most interesting person you've ever interviewed or profiled of all your years, yeah, interviewing?
Okay. Oh, wow. It's a very, very tough question. Like you said, I did meet a lot of interesting people, whether they're face to face or even on online Zoom meetings. And please,
Yeah.
I would rather do face to face interviews because you can tell so much from their expression, from their body language, and so forth, right? So in that aspect, I would fondly remember Lady Gaga when she did a showcase in Singapore. This was years ago, before her acting career. And in that room, she actually went up to each of the reporters, shook their hand. And while we are introducing ourselves, like, hi, I'm Rita, nice to meet you, she would, repeat after you, like, hi, Rita, nice to meet you. And she did that to every single reporter, repeating their names. And for me, that just spells respect because as an artist, she also respects the relationship she has with the media liaison with the PR because they are also helping to write about their progress, their music, their next acting project, and things like that. So I thought that left quite a nice, memorable, yeah, fond memory for me.
That's great. That's great to know that. Yeah. And when it comes to, I'm sure you receive lots of pitches. Everybody would want their personalities or their persons or their spokespersons getting interviewed. For yourself, when it comes to looking for lifestyle personalities for interviews, what do you look out for such pitches?
Yeah, I mean, at Yahoo right now, we do interview lots of entrepreneurs, beauty founders, CEOs. What I'm looking for is that sense of grit, that sense of, trials and tribulations, the challenges that they faced when building their brand. I think it's good to see a lot of the achievements that they have faced, but I also want to bring forth their own challenge, whether, as a single mom and they are balancing their own business, there's that human interest that's quite interesting to talk about. Yeah, so that's one. So even for International Women's Day, my angle to my freelancer is to look for moms who have more than three, four kids, and at the same time they're working full time. How do they do it? So that's the kind of like human interest that I'm looking for. So now
Mm.
when it comes to pictures, I would actually value if the PR personnel do come to us much earlier on because we actually have set some of the angles in place, and it doesn't help us if they come like a day before International Women's Day pitching, a CEO of a company. And to me, I don't have any resources at that time to, interview this person because I had already set my editorial calendar weeks before because we knew such events would be pillars to our channel.
I see. How early should such pitches come that would be
I
beneficial
would
for your
say,
team?
yeah, I mean, even a month earlier would be much, much appreciated because it's about number one, I need to find a freelancer who's suitable for that topic. And then number two is about finding the right timing to schedule the interview. And then it takes time for the writer to really sit down, get into the mood of that piece of interview, and then write it out right. And all the back and forth about getting images or checking certain quotes. So I would say a month's time would be much appreciated.
I see. All right. And okay, so besides receiving pitches and press releases, how do you hope public relations professionals can work better with you and your team, in keeping you guys abreast on developments in the lifestyle scene? How can PR professionals work better with you guys?
Yeah, I think understanding our editorial calendar, knowing in advance what are some of the tempo events that we'll be concentrating on, I think that will be very helpful. And then, prepping us or keeping us abreast with like your clients' information, knowledge, story, I think that will be much appreciated. So in that sense, having really one-to-one meets with the editors, finding out about what they're preparing 3 months or 4 months in advance. I think that would very much help the relationship between the PR personnel as well as the media, all the journalists that's writing their
Mm.
story, right? So that would also help prepare the journalists in terms of like, oh, okay, you know what? I just recently spoke to this PR person. I know they have this client. We can use them for a quote for this story, things like that. So it's about having a very close relationship and understanding of what each of the media titles are, preparing for their calendar in
I see,
advance.
I see. So it really, really helps to do the legwork before just sending a random pitch or a random press release, to
Yeah, correct. I
the media
mean,
these
it's
days.
it's great that we get calls from, clients who say, hey, we'd like to sit down with you privately, have a coffee chat because we just want to see how we can align much. And, that really helps because then we can also share the pipelines that we have. And then at the same time, finding out what products or campaigns that they have.
All right, Ken. And when it comes to lifestyle, what kind of content are you looking out for from a public, from PR professionals besides press releases? What other things that or content you hope they can provide that would be helpful for you and your team to spin off ideas for coverage or to jumpstart ideas? Is there any particular type of content that your team is looking out for?
Um, it can be very broad or it can be very niche also, depending on the categories that we're working. Like, for example, like if the brands can give us some behind the scenes, some exclusive piece of content that they won't offer to the other media titles, then that will be helpful. See, or even when it comes to like, okay, Earth Day is coming. Is there a startup that's doing something different out there that has not been spoken of, or a startup that is trying to address a problem not just within our tiny island but also maybe within Southeast Asia? I think that might be quite an interesting story to tell even. So we are kind of like looking for unique angles, at the same time, topics of interest that our readers may find interesting too. Now, sometimes certain angles we feel that we may preempt too early. We think that, okay, sustainability may be something big that people want to read. But our stats show that, okay, there are not a lot of people reading it, but maybe it was written in a way that we had preempted too earlier. But at the same time, we know that this is a topic that the young people are interested in. And it's something that we will always try and pursue and try different angles of, whether it's on wildlife because people love otters, or like all the different bird species that have descended on Singapore, just to highlight like their endangered species, so that we're trying to tie in certain things to also grab the attention of our readers.
All right, okay, Ken. And 20 with things like F1 coming back in 2022, it looks like an exciting scene, back here in Singapore. So which events and which events and topics are you most excited about, for the rest of the year? Is there anything that's on your radar?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, Formula One has been the biggest event announcement. And of course, with Formula One comes the entertainment part. And on top of people's mind, how is Singapore going to, bring up the entertainment element while keeping to some of the safe distancing measures, for example? Will we be expecting big names? Because Singapore has always been the hub, for Hollywood celebrities or Southeast Asian personalities to come and promote their music or movies. So I think that's something that'd be quite interesting, whether it's a full scale concert, whether it's an intimate, or whether it's a combination of a phygital, I hate to use that word, a
Oh, that's
physical
such
and
a
a
word.
digital
Okay.
element. Yeah.
Digital. Okay.
So yeah, cross fingers. Hopefully, we will see something exciting so far, and I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Are there any other topics or topics or trends that are on your radar for this year?
Right now, I would say shopping itself is actually my top priority right now, only because also we have a sales KPI to meet in order to grow the revenue for the company. And it's great because it's exciting that we're making money for the company. I mean, the role as a journalist has evolved so much. We're no longer reporters, we are media producers, we are a TikTok producer, we create shopping content. So content has evolved in different formats in that sense, and we are here to embrace, the startup mindset, what our company is expecting us of. So for me, I would say shopping is going to be quite interesting, also because a lot of us have all stepped out to shopping malls to start shopping, and how us as a shopping team come back to our content to entice our readers, whether it's giving promo deals, whether we are sniffing out the right bargains and the right brands for our readers to shop from. I think that would be quite interesting for us this year.
So thank you so much, Rita, for your time to share everything about your experiences as journalist as well as the work that you do at Yahoo Lifestyle. So lastly, before we go off, could you just tell our listeners where can they get your book, The Stories Women Journalists Tell? Where can they shop for the book?
Thanks for the question, and thank you so much for the support of our little humble book. So you can actually pick up the stories women journalists tell at both Kinokuniya, Malaysia and Singapore. It was also available in Epigram, but I was told it was sold out. So
Wow.
thank you. Support your independent bookstores as well. In Malaysia, you can also get it from the Lit Books, another independent bookstore. You can also find it online, both on Book Depository, Lazada, as well as Amazon. And if you happen to be in Paris, we're also available at Smith and Son. How amazing is that?
Wow, well, I guess with traveling out on the go, some people might actually be in Paris, right? Yeah, and as for yourself, is there other plans for book number two, or or writing something else?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because after the first book came out, and I had fellow friends who reached out to me and say, "Hey, if you're doing a second book, we want to be part of it," and that gives me comfort and confidence that people are interested in the book. So we'll see. We'll need to ask Penguin about that as well.
Okay, all right, Ken, thank you so much for your time, Rita. And that was Reta Lee, editor-in-chief of Yahoo Live Southeast Asia, on the Behind the Byline podcast. Look out for more podcast episodes on the PR Newswire APAC social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And we're on Spotify too. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.